When you think of NASCAR in Florida during the 4th of July weekend, I'm 114.8% sure that you don't think of a short track. Well, for 4 years in the late 80s and early 90s, the Volusia County Speedway would host the NASCAR Busch Series, and these races were pretty tough for the drivers and fans respectively. This simple fact, along with other things to do with this race's history, make it all kinds of cursed just to even glance at on Racing Reference. Today, I tell the story of the 1992 X1R Firecracker 200 for the NASCAR Busch Series at Volusia County Speedway. Welcome back to the Random Race Write-Up, the show where I break down the best and worst races that motorsports has to offer. This race would be the halfway point of the 1992 Busch Series season, and even the championship standings are just wrong to look at. Kenny Wallace would lead the championship over Joe Nemechek in second, Bobby Labonte in third, Robert Presley in fourth, and this young kid from Indiana named Jeff Gordon in fifth. Heat and humidity would be the name of the game for this weekend, with the drivers having to deal with 105-degree heat and 60% humidity. That simple fact alone makes me feel 10 times better about the fact that the current feels-like temperature for the day of me recording this is 25 degrees. And no, I'm not over-embellishing this just for comedic effect. I'm recording this audio under a blanket. The track was also breaking up during the practice sessions to the point where qualifying had to be postponed to the next day. This race was pretty much a who's who of NASCAR drivers in the coming decades. Jeff and Ward Byrne, Jeff and David Green, Kenny Wallace, Jeff Gordon, Todd Bodine, Jimmy Spencer, and David Bonnet, Neil Bonnet's son, who is making his debut in the Busch Series with Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. Jeff Gordon would start the race from pole position, with Todd Bodine starting alongside. With the pre-race blabber out of the way, we can finally get into this this race. After Troy Beebe finally got his car fired up and caught up to the back of the pack, we were able to get this race started. Jeff Gordon would get the jump on Bodine at the start, along with Bobby Labonte, who'd eventually pass Bodine for second place. On lap number 7, Butch Miller would spin and bring out a very brief caution. So brief that in the TNN commercial break, we missed the restart and ensuing spin for Tracy Leslie.
This is Miller time.
It's a duck. It's a tray. Yes, ladies.
This is not.
If you buy 5 of them, you get 1 free.
Miller time.
Here we are in Arkansas. Here we are
Not
in Nebraska.
Miller time.
Here we are in Florida.
It's a simple idea. Miller time. Not. Make your 4th of July Miller time with this official USA Team volleyball. Look for it where you buy Miller beer. Everyone knows when it's Miller time.
This brought out another caution, but much like the first, it was brief and we got back to racing shortly after. We would be green and single file for another 19 laps. With the low banks, little grip, and high heat, there's no overtaking besides Jeff Gordon lapping the ass end of the field. Kenny Wallace would pull into the pits during this green flag stint and stay there for a while with electrical issues. Jeff Green would bring out the third caution on lap 33 when he spun in turn 4, and thanks to TNN, we missed that incident too. We got back to racing on lap 37. Ward Byrne would spin on this restart, but unfortunately for the harder to understand Byrne brother, the caution wouldn't come out yet. On lap 55, Robert Presley didn't like the cut of Jim Bone's jib and spun him off of 4. On the next restart, Gordon would once again get a great launch and continue to hold the lead that he held since the start. After another 18 laps of freight training, TNN cut to a commercial break right as the caution came out. Troy Beebe and Mike Porter brought out another caution right as Kenny Wallace rejoined the race 60 laps down. I wish I had more information for you, but TNN cut to another commercial break and missed the next restart. I hate this broadcast with a burning passion. Jeff Byrne and Jeff Green spun again and brought out another brief caution, and on the restart, someone finally passed Jeff Gordon. Albeit it was Ward Byrne, who's a few laps down, but hell, it was something. A few cars skated up the track during this section of the race, and there's a very good reason for this. The icing on the Sunday of this race came on lap 110 when the asphalt in turn 3 completely fell apart. To the shock of nobody, the red flag came out to repair the track, and it's here where I have to call red flag of my own. Writing this video was honestly exhausting. Recording this audio was also exhausting too, and I can't really speak of future me editing this video, but I'm sure it was exhausting as well. This race was just terrible and straight up offensive to all of the senses, and the track issues throughout the weekend didn't help this. Joe Nemechek brought up how awful the race was with the heat, track issues, and poor racing, and Shauna Robinson called the track an obstacle course. Mike Joy pointed out during the red flag that NASCAR could and should have called the race official, and I think the same applies for this video, so I'm calling it short. There is nothing that could save this race just off the terrible 110 laps I just had to sit through. After another 6 cautions, including a crash with Jeff Gordon who led 164 laps on the day, Steve Grissom would eventually win the 1992 X1R Firecracker 200. Jimmy Spencer would finish second, and Robert Presley would finish third. I have no words to summarize the parade I just had to sit through. Some races are loaded with cautions, but they have good racing. Some races aren't the best in the world, but they don't drag on for so long that it feels like the race is just repeating itself. And some races have a bad broadcast, but doesn't distract from the amazing action that we're getting on track. This race had all of those 3 things combined into one shitstorm of a race. Imagine how NASCAR Twitter would have reacted if NBC didn't catch the caution, pit stops, and restart that helped Kyle Larson win the 2021 NASCAR Cup Championship. This race embodies the deadly sins of a failed motorsports event, so it should be no shock when I say that the 1992 X1R Firecracker 200 gets a 0 out of 10. If you have any suggestions for what races you want me to cover in the future of this series, let me know in the comments, and have a great afternoon. And don't watch the 1992 X1R Firecracker 200, please.